You don't need motivation. Let that sink in. Motivation is soft. Motivation is temporary. Motivation is what people look for when they don't want to suffer. And that's exactly why you're still stuck. Because every time life gets uncomfortable, you go searching for motivation instead of embracing pain. You scroll, you watch videos, you wait to feel ready, and while you're waiting, your life is passing you by. Here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. The people who win aren't motivated. They're conditioned. They didn't wait for the right feeling. They trained themselves to move even when everything hurts. Pain is the difference. Pain is what you avoid. Pain is what you numb with comfort, entertainment, excuses, and fake positivity. And pain is exactly what you need, because pain is honest. Pain doesn't lie to you. Pain exposes every excuse you hide behind. Motivation whispers. Pain screams. And sometimes, you need to be screamed at. Look at your life. Be real with yourself for once. Not the version you show online. Not the version you tell your friends about. The real version. If motivation worked, you would already be disciplined. If motivation worked, you wouldn't quit every time things got hard. If motivation worked, your habits would already be solid. But they're not, because motivation disappears the moment pain shows up. Pain is waking up when your body begs for sleep. Pain is training when you're exhausted. Pain is working when nobody's watching. Pain is saying no to comfort when your mind is desperate for relief. That's why most people never change. They don't hate their situation enough. They're uncomfortable, but not desperate. Unhappy, but not enraged. Tired, but not fed up. So they stay the same. They say they want more, but they live like they don't. They talk about discipline, but run from pain. They admire strong people, but refuse to become one. And deep down, they know it. That's the worst part. You know exactly what you're avoiding. You know the work you're not doing. You know the habits you keep postponing. You know the discipline you keep delaying. And every day you don't act, that knowledge eats at you. It turns into self-doubt, into frustration, into quiet self-hatred. That's why you feel stuck. Not because you're incapable, but because you keep choosing comfort over pain. Pain builds power. Comfort builds weakness. Read that again. Every strong person you admire went through pain willingly. Not because they enjoyed it, but because they respected what it produces. Pain sharpens you. Pain forces growth when comfort keeps you soft. And here's what nobody prepares you for. Pain doesn't feel heroic in the moment. It feels lonely. It feels unfair. There's no applause, no recognition, no validation. Just you versus your limits. That's where most people fold. They don't quit because it's impossible. They quit because it's uncomfortable. They mistake discomfort for danger. But discomfort is the price. You don't become dangerous by feeling good. You become dangerous by surviving what others avoid. That's why discipline isn't built in comfort. It's built in suffering. When you do the hard thing, even when your mind is screaming no. When you show up even when you're empty. When you keep going, even when quitting feels justified. That's where identity is forged. Not in motivation, in pain. Pain teaches you control. Pain teaches you restraint. Pain teaches you how to move forward without permission from your emotions. And once you learn that, once you realize you don't need to feel good to act, you unlock something most people never will. Freedom. Because you're no longer controlled by moods. You're no longer trapped by feelings. You're no longer dependent on motivation. You move because you decided to. That's power. That's what separates disciplined people from everyone else. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself. It's about choosing pain now so you don't suffer later. Because make no mistake, you will suffer either way. You will suffer from discipline, or you will suffer from regret. You will suffer from effort, or you will suffer from staying average. The pain of work is temporary. The pain of regret lasts forever. And deep down, you already know which one hurts more. That's why this message feels uncomfortable, because it's calling you out. It's reminding you that no one is holding you back but you. No one is stopping you but your tolerance for comfort. No one is responsible for your life except you. Pain is the gatekeeper. It stands between who you are and who you could become. And every day you avoid it, the gap grows wider. But the moment you stop running, the moment you lean into discomfort, The moment you stop asking for motivation and start demanding discipline, everything begins to change. Your confidence changes. Your posture changes. Your mindset changes. Because you're no longer negotiating with weakness. You're training it into submission. This is where most people turn away. This is where they click off. This is where excuses start forming. But if you're still here, that means something inside you recognizes the truth. And that's dangerous, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending motivation is the answer. You can't go back to blaming circumstances. You can't go back to lying to yourself. From this point forward, you either choose pain, or you choose stagnation. There is no third option. Here's where pain stops being an idea and starts becoming a requirement. Because at some point, pain stops asking for permission. It shows up anyway. Life doesn't care about your comfort. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your excuses. It will pressure you. It will test you. It will strip away everything fake. And when that moment comes, motivation will not be there. Motivation disappears the second things get inconvenient. Pain doesn't leave. Pain stays until you change or break. That's why pain is the teacher. That's why pain is necessary. Most people try to avoid pain their entire lives, not realizing they're training themselves to be fragile. Every time you choose comfort, you reinforce weakness. Every time you choose the easy route, you tell your mind that quitting is acceptable. Every time you delay discipline, you teach yourself that your word means nothing, and over time, that compounds. You don't wake up one day weak. You build weakness daily through avoidance, through small compromises, through excuses you justify as rest or balance. But balance without discipline is just slow decay. Look at yourself honestly. How many times have you said you'd start tomorrow? How many times have you promised yourself this would be the week you lock in? How many times have you quit quietly and pretended it didn't matter? That's not because you're incapable. It's because you haven't suffered enough to change. Pain forces clarity. Pain removes delusion. Pain shows you exactly who you are when there's nothing left to hide behind. And that version of you is either disciplined or exposed. There's no pretending under pressure. That's why people who avoid pain avoid growth. Growth hurts. Transformation hurts. Becoming better hurts. And the stronger the version you want to become, the more pain it will require. You don't rise without resistance. You don't sharpen a blade without friction. You don't build mental armor without stress. Pain is the process. Discipline is how you control it. Most people wait for life to force pain on them. Loss, failure, embarrassment, rock bottom. And by then, the damage is already done. The strong choose pain early. Controlled pain. Voluntary pain. Pain with purpose. They train when it's hard so life doesn't break them when it gets harder. That's the difference. They don't see pain as punishment. They see it as preparation. Every early morning you don't want to wake up. Every workout you want to skip. Every moment you want to give in. That's training. Not just for your body, but for your identity. You're teaching yourself who's in control. Your emotions are your standards. Weak people are ruled by how they feel. Strong people are ruled by what they decided long before the pain arrived. That's why discipline is non-negotiable. Discipline is you saying, I don't care how I feel. Discipline is you saying, I move regardless. Discipline is you proving to yourself that your word matters. And once your word matters to you, everything changes. You walk differently. You speak differently. You think differently. Because you trust yourself. You know you'll show up. You know you won't quit. You know you can endure. That confidence doesn't come from affirmations. It comes from pain survived. Pain chosen. Pain conquered. That's why comfort feels good but destroys you long term. And pain feels terrible but builds you into someone unrecognizable. Comfort gives you relief. Pain gives you respect. Comfort numbs you. Pain awakens you. Comfort keeps you average. Pain gives you an edge. And deep down, you don't want an easy life. You want a strong self. You don't want less pressure. You want more capacity. You don't want less struggle. You want more control. And control is earned through suffering. That's why discipline is lonely. Because most people won't walk this path. They'll say you're extreme. They'll say you're obsessed. They'll say you're doing too much. But what they really mean is they're not willing to do what you're doing. And that's fine. This path isn't for everyone. It's for the few who are tired of lying to themselves. Tired of repeating the same year. Tired of being disappointed in their own reflection. Pain is the line in the sand. On one side is comfort and excuses. On the other side is growth and discipline. And crossing that line hurts. But staying where you are hurts more. That's the truth nobody escapes. You either choose pain with direction, or pain without progress. There is no painless path. Only purposeful pain or pointless pain. And once you accept that, once you stop asking for motivation and start demanding discipline, you stop negotiating with weakness. You stop asking, do I feel like it? You start asking what needs to be done. And that's when things begin to shift fast. Because consistency beats intensity. And discipline beats motivation every time. Pain is no longer something you fear. It becomes something you use. Something you channel. Something you respect. You stop running from discomfort and start hunting it. Because you understand something most people never will. Pain is temporary. Regret is permanent. Pain eventually stops feeling like pain. That's the part no one tells you. At first it burns. At first it feels like resistance. At first every disciplined action feels forced, heavy, unnatural. But repetition changes everything. What once felt unbearable becomes familiar. What once felt impossible becomes routine. And what once scared you becomes your baseline. This is where real separation happens. Because most people quit before this point. They never stay long enough to feel pain transform into power. They leave while it's still uncomfortable. They leave while it's still unfamiliar. They leave before identity is formed. But if you stay, something shifts. You stop arguing with yourself. You stop negotiating with weakness. You stop needing external pressure to move. Discipline stops being something you do and becomes who you are. You don't need reminders. You don't need hype. You don't need motivation. You move because not moving feels wrong. And that's when you realize the truth. You were never lacking motivation. You were lacking standards. You accepted a version of yourself that avoided pain. You tolerated habits that made you smaller. You allowed comfort to dictate your behavior. And now that control is gone. You don't wait for the perfect moment. You don't wait to feel ready. You don't wait for permission. You act. Even tired. Even frustrated. Even drained. Especially then. Because pain no longer scares you. You've trained in it. You've lived in it. You've learned how to function inside it. That's why pressure doesn't break disciplined people. It reveals them. While others panic, you execute. While others hesitate, you move. While others make excuses, you adapt. Not because you're special, but because you built yourself under stress instead of avoiding it. You didn't escape discomfort, you used it. And now it follows you everywhere as quiet confidence. Not loud, not flashy, not performative, calm, controlled, dangerous. People feel it when you walk into a room. You don't talk much. You don't explain yourself. You don't seek validation. You don't need to. You know what you're capable of because you've seen yourself suffer and not quit. That's real self-belief. Not words. Not affirmations. Proof. And once you have that proof, nothing external can take it from you. No setback. No criticism. No bad day. Because your foundation wasn't built on feelings. It was built on discipline. And discipline doesn't collapse under pressure. It sharpens. This is where life starts responding differently. Opportunities appear. Respect shifts. Momentum builds. Not because the world suddenly became fair, but because you became prepared. And preparation looks like luck to people who never trained. They'll ask how you changed so fast. They'll say you're different. They'll say you're intense. They'll say you're obsessed. Let them. You didn't do this for approval. You did this because you were done being weak. Done being inconsistent. Done being controlled by comfort. And here's the part you need to hear clearly. This path never gets easier. You just get stronger. The pain doesn't disappear. It evolves. The resistance doesn't stop. It increases. But so does your capacity to handle it. And that's the goal. Not a painless life. A powerful self. Because pain will come whether you want it or not. Life guarantees that. The only question is whether pain shapes you or shatters you. Whether it builds you or exposes you. Whether it turns you into someone dangerous or leaves you average forever. That choice is made daily. In silence. In routine. In moments no one sees. When you either do the hard thing or make another excuse. And now you know the truth. Motivation was never the answer. Pain was. Discipline was. Ownership was. And from this point on, you don't get to pretend you don't know. You don't get to hide behind inspiration. You don't get to blame circumstances. Because you've seen what's required. And if this hit you, if it made you uncomfortable, if it made you feel exposed, good. That's pain doing its job. Use it. Don't numb it. Don't scroll past it. Don't forget it. Let it drive you. Because the version of you that avoids pain is done. And the version of you that uses it is just getting started.